top 10 largest salt mines in the world. While salt is commonplace today, it used to be harder to come by and considered a delicacy as well as a mark of wealth. Before the Industrial Revolution, salt mining was incredibly dangerous and was done largely by hand. Rapid dehydration in miners from constant contact with salt and the salt dust that was breathed in made life expectancy short. As such, this was the work of slaves and prisoners. The difficulty of mining made salt a rare symbol of wealth on the table. Now, however, salt is a kitchen staple. Because of the efficiency of mining, salt is much more commonplace and affordable. Here are the top 10 largest salt mines in the world. 10th, Cathedral of Salt in Colombia. The Cathedral of Salt in Colombia is the largest salt mine in the country. It is called out of Zipaquira salt mines, which have been in use since 5th century before era. Cathedral was called out of an active salt mine in 1950. After being inspired by a small cathedral erected in mines by workers. The original cathedral was inaugurated in 1954. However, authorities shut down the working cathedral in 1990 after concerns were raised about structural soundness in an active mine. However, the local town was undeterred and began building another cathedral 200 feet below the previous one, completing in 1995. The current cathedral is 75 meters long, 25 meters high, and has a giant cross cut on the back wall. Approximately 10,000 people can be within the cathedral at capacity, and it attracts 3,000 plus visitors on most Sundays. 9th, Assi Salt Mine in Germany. The Assi Salt Mine has been at the forefront of much controversy in the past decade. It was once a set of mines where both potassium and rock salt were excavated from 1906 to 1965. After the site closed, the state took it over to test the concept of storing radioactive waste. From 1967 to 1978, approximately 125,000 barrels of low-level and medium-level radioactive waste were stored in the mines. However, in 2008, some media reports disclosed that contaminated brine had been pumped deep into the lowest part of the mine caverns. This was because the underground water of the regions was reaching the caverns, raising the possibility of coating the barrels with rust and causing leakage into the water. This was especially concerning if the mine flooded. Furthermore, the mountain itself isn't that stable, which is causing the cracks that are causing the flooding. There is a worry that the caverns will collapse completely. In 2010, it was decided to remove the barrels, which could take years. Anyway, there is a risk to local residents from exposure that may make it more feasible to leave the barriers down there. Regardless, you can actually tour this radioactive salt mine when you visit Germany. 8th, Mara Salt Mine in Peru. These Peruvian salt terraces were once a precious asset of the Inca. An underground spring that feeds on waters of the mountain range carries heavy silt and the salt which collects in the cliffside ponds. The salt is then harvested by native people. Access to the ponds is incredibly difficult as the workers must traverse the Urubamba Valley. The crevices are enough to make old, but the most adventurous of travelers turn back. The rich pink salt produced from this Peruvian valley once supplied ancient Incan capitals, and the channels used to inundate the terraces that were built by the Inca are Sovann Danakil salt pan in Ethiopia. Danakil salt pan is one of the most famous salt pans in the world because of its reality-defying climate. The salt pan is nicknamed the gateway to hell because it is considered the hottest inhabitable place on the planet. Because parts of the Danakil are under 300 feet under sea level, forming a volcano rim cauldron which reaches below 120 degrees Celsius in the summer. However, far people still adventure into the cauldron early in the morning, when it is just 50 to 60 degrees Celsius to extract blocks of salt from the 800mm thick layer. The salt blocks were once used as a unit of money in Ethiopia and are now sold across the country. They often supply farmers who use them to give livestock necessary minerals. 6. Polyvello village in Indonesia. The Bimba salt pans on the island of Zimbabwe play a huge part in one of the most most important communities. Salt pans in Zimbabwe occupy nearly 7 square miles and have been producing salt for centuries. The salt from Bimba has been traded throughout the Indonesian archipelago for centuries. It is also believed that Bimba salt made it to Malaysia and the Philippines along the travels of UGC gypsies. Though today, Bimba salt is one of the Iceland's most important commodities, the production is still largely a cottage industry. This because salt pans are farmed at hand via individual families or even small cooperatives. 5th, Bielefeld salt mine in Poland. The Bielefeld salt mine in Poland is a World Heritage Site and a national landmark in Poland. It no longer serves as an industrial mine and instead operates mainly as a tourist attraction. This grey salt deposit formed in the Miocene eras, or about 13.6 million years ago. The first mention of the salt in Bielefeld was in the 12th century when a Benedictine monastery was granted rights to salt from the mine. The mine was in operation from the 13th century until 1996 when the formal industry was shut down. It even survived occupation by the Germans from 1936 to 1944. The mine is known for its chapel, the Chapel of the Holy Cross in the French Joseph I Chamber. It was built in 1871 as an offering for the years-long fight against flooding in the lower levels caused by catastrophic magnesium and potassium mining. The mine also features a crystal grotto in the lower levels and a historic saline bath that make it a futurist destination. 4th, Atacama salt flat in Chile. The Silla Atacama or Atacama salt flat is the largest salt flat in Chile. It is surrounded by mountains and volcanoes with no drainage sources. Although the Atacama salt flat is the largest in Chile, its output is derivative of salt present lithium. Lithium and boron are both extracted from the salt flat brine in the form of ulexite and double or triple salt of lithium sulfate. This occurs in the southern region of the salt flats. The Atacama salt flat is the world's largest and purest active source of lithium, containing most of the world's lithium reserve base. As of 2017, it produced about 36% of the world's lithium carbonate supply. Third, Praha salt mine in Romania. The Praha salt mine has the distinction of being the largest salt mine in Europe. It is no longer used for industrial purposes, but has a far more interesting one now. That is for healing and medical excursion. It is let out for the public in 14 breathtaking gallery, pun intended. Visits to the salt mine are recommended to treat some respiratory infections. After all, in these galleries, you can see motifs, sculptures, and busts carved of salt, including the bust of Bielefeld, the last king of nations. These were the ancestors of the Romanian people. The galleries are over 50 meters high, which is taller than the height of the Statue of Liberty. Second, Kera salt mines in Pakistan. The Kera salt mines are said to be discovered by Alexander the Great in 326 before century. Well, that's not exactly correct. The true credit for discovering the salt in Kera goes to his horse. This is because when his army stopped to rest in Kera, Alexander's horse and the horse of his soldiers began licking the stones on the ground. A brave soldier tried it himself and discovered the salty flavor. Today, the Kera salt mines are the second largest in the world. They turned out 325,000 tons of salt a year. The output over its lifetime is estimated to be 220 million tons. Amazingly, this isn't a dent into the salt that is stored here, which is estimated to be about 6.687 billion tons. The mine is 748 feet deep with 11 stories. The mine is filled with tunnels that run nearly half a mile into the mountain. Only 50% of what is mined is taken out. The other 50% is stood as support columns in the enormous mine. First, Siftor salt mines in Ontario. This Canadian salt mine holds the distinction of being the largest salt mine in the world. It is located 1,800 feet under Lake Huron. For perspective, that's just 15 feet shorter than the CN Tower in Toronto. This salt was once deposited 400 million years ago by an ocean that covered the Great Lakes Basin. The mine has been in operation since 1959. The biggest purpose for this salt is a life-saving one. Iraq salt produced from the mine is sold to retailers all over North America to spread in the winter snow and ice. This helps prevent black ice, which cause many wintry accidents and fatality. The salt is also sold to make industrial and cleaning products. Amazingly, there is a very unusual little town below the lake bed in the enormous mine. Approximately 400 people work in the subterranean city, and its feature roadways that enormous 40 tons dump trucks drive on. Dump trucks are strapped to their frames, lowered into the mine and reassembled, never to come to the surface again. Maze of service depots, lunchrooms, storage caverns, workshops. The plants below the lake used to have a bus system until the 100 miles of roadways got too complicated. Now, the workers employ a fleet of John Deere graders to get to and from their destinations. Reference: Top 10 largest salt mine in the world. I am really appreciate you for watching any Sovann daily videos. In order to receive endless financial and investment videos, please like, share, comment on my Facebook page and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Stay safe. Thank you.